Terrence here, and we're going to be on in about 2 minutes, so do us a favor, share it around. Let's get those subs up. We are not going to stop tonight until we get to 1,000 subs, okay? So we're like 28 behind. We need to get there tonight. I need your help. Let's get there. See you in 2 minutes. No sleep till 1K. That's what we're at today. Welcome to the Reefing Report. I'm Terrence, and I'm here with
Mark Callahan, Mr. Saltwater Tank, drinking some brewed probiotic tea because that's going to make my corals grow faster.
That's pretty gross. I am drinking some good rye. This is Rabbit Hole. And it's a Rabbit Hole rye. Which one is it? Something Grail. Boxer Grail. That's what it is. It's a maple old-fashioned made with Boxer Grail. So there you go. For those of you that saw the little tease that I put out earlier, that's what's on tap for me tonight. But we've got another great show here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody who subscribes. Please go out and subscribe on YouTube for us. If you're on Facebook, head on over there. Hit the subscribe button. We would appreciate it. We're trying to get to 1K tonight. We're not that far off. And, yeah, we're going to have a great show. Had a great show last week, Mark. We had a record attendance last week on the show, and want to blow it away this week as well. So how are you doing, Mark?
It's been a busy week. We both destroyed our houses, ripped apart our lives. My master bathroom is gone. The kitchen is about to be gone. The hardwood floors are all gone. I made friends with every dump in the county. So you know what? That means all you can do is work on fish tanks, which I did this week as well. So now I got another one next week. They got to fly to New York to talk about another one. I mean, it never ends. So, but hey, we're talking about the saltwater aquarium industry tonight and new stuff that's out there.
Well, hey, first I got to show the before and after on mine, because I think that's that's the before. And so most people are like, oh, that looks just fine. Okay. But then you must not be married. Okay, because I agree.
Wait. Are you saying this was a Nancy thing? You're trying to blame your wife, Nancy, on it?
Well, we did have a little water damage on the floor right before COVID hit, and so we did have to take care of that.
Who caused that?
Well, that was the RDI backing up in the sink because the sink had a clog in it. By the way, for those of you who dump your RODI waste into your sink, realize that if your sink ever clogs up downstream, it's going to be bad news. Just letting you know. That's I know that for sure. So, look at that. Hey, it's working, dude.
When did you add that in?
Yeah, I added that in like a couple of weeks ago, but I thought it wasn't working. But that's pretty sweet, huh?
That's cool.
Yep.
All right. So
there it is now.
I see the water damage.
That's what it looks like now. So, and then, so 2 days later, so that took 2 days for them to go from basically from that to that. Took 2 days, and then my contractor said, "Oh, by the way, I just got COVID." So I'm like, "Oh, great." So now what? So hopefully next week he's coming back, because I had to take like a whole load to the dump myself instead of him. And yeah, so that's where I am. It's funny that we're both doing it at the same time, Mark. Not planned, but it's really ironic.
We'll have to like take screenshots over the next 2 months, like see if our eyes get more tired, look bags under our eyes. And then when it's done, everyone will be like, they're really happy tonight. I wonder what happened. Oh, they're done with their house renovation project.
Yeah, it's like planning for a wedding is still like seared into my mind as one of like the most horrible times of my life, okay? And redoing a kitchen, okay, is going to be right there with it. Because
okay. So let's ask, because we are just now going through this experience. For those of you that have redone a reef tank, moved it, upgraded, whatever, and have redone your kitchen, which is worse? Redoing a reef tank, and we're not talking like re-aquascaping. We're talking like ripping out the old one, moving one to your new place, something major, right? Or redoing your kitchen. Which one's worse? Well, that's a question. We'll start with that.
Yeah, we'll get that out there. We'll see.
For that to go.
We'll see what people have to say about that. But I also did some reef work today too. I think it's my first water change in, I think it's probably 6 months. I don't know. I didn't mark it down. Yeah.
Wait, you didn't put it in your Apex as a note?
No, I didn't. I am the worst with all of that kind of stuff. So, but I did do a water change, and it's the second time I've used this new pool hose, the big 1.5 inch or whatever that you use for like a vacuum on your
blue
pool.
One?
Yeah, not collapsible. No, they're kind of rigid. They go for your sweep on your pool, right?
Oh,
yeah. And I used one of those again, and I've forgotten how fast it will drain 80 gallons out of your sump, because I was trying to clean all the detritus and everything out of the sump, and I'm like, wait a second, I'm not done yet, and it's already down 80 gallons. So I guess I have to refill and do another water change. What I usually end up doing is over the course of like 2 weeks, I'll do like 3 water changes, and then I won't do a water change for like 6 months. That's pretty much my modus operandi.
So, Seashade Steve could hook you up with a Seashade Zero, and you could suck up all that stuff at a good rate of speed, but not too fast. Yes. And get done what you need to get done.
I have one of those, actually. But the problem is with one of those is that it's like I can't get it in the nooks and crannies and everything else. So I just like using a hose. And before I used like a 1-inch hose, and I could, it took me a lot longer to do. But it was nice because I did a water change in probably like 10 minutes. So that was good.
But did you log this water change in your notes? No,
I didn't log anything. I also did an oil change on the Ram 1500 this weekend, the Ram 1500 Eco Diesel that we have. First oil change ever. $200 just for 7.5. $200 just for the parts. I didn't even bother asking what the service center wanted for that thing, because the oil filter is like $85, $90. So
did you use Shell Rotella T oil?
That's
like
not even good enough.
Standard.
That's not even good enough for the Ram. There's some other oil, I can't remember the name of it, that is like one step up from that. It's $50 for a 5-quart jug. Okay. So I did that this weekend too. And did I mark it down somewhere? No. I told Nancy to write it somewhere, but there you go.
Okay.
So those are all the fun chores we had this weekend.
We have votes on our which is worth, moving, tearing down, redoing a reef tank, or a kitchen. We have lots of votes for kitchens, but I got to give this one to Uptown Reefer. Moving the reef is worse. You can hire people for the kitchen. This is a good point.
Yes, that is definitely a good point. The other thing, too, is that when you're doing the reef, generally it's your gig. So you get to make the decisions. You get to live with your own decisions. You don't have, if you're going to waffle on something, you're waffling with yourself. It's not like, I thought you told me you wanted gold handles, before. Now you want silver handles, and, you want this. Wait a second, we already decided on that. So that's the part that she's watching right now, I'm sure. Or she's gonna watch it back and be like, "What are you talking about?" But we got it all decided. It's gonna be great when it's done. I'll share it when it's done. It's gonna be awesome. I think I'm confident.
I know you're confident, Terrence. You don't have to think. The world knows Terrence Fugazi is confident. With that, let's talk about one of your favorite products, because we're getting some questions about it already on the stream. The Radeon G6. Now it's not quite official. It's official tomorrow, but there's been plenty of leaks out there with some good info. So it is coming. One thing that someone's asking, they want to know if the G5 is going to be upgradable to the new G6. The answer to that is yes, you can upgrade. And you can do something interesting. If you had a Pro and you really decided you wanted a Blue, you can swap which one that you're going to. So if you started with Blue and you want a Pro, you can swap them out.
For the very economical $399.
Okay. All right. So what should it be then, Terrence? What price do you think is appropriate?
I mean, it's a piece of plastic and a circuit board, right? You're not replacing any of the driver, electronics or any of the other stuff. And I think it's probably a $249, I think would be the right price consumer-wise, in my opinion, where it would feel right.
But inflation.
Rolling up on 50% of the cost of the entire thing with the power supply, the fixture, I've already paid for the engineering tax, so to speak, right? Because I'm in the ecosystem and the first, because there's not that much has changed, right? So all of the R&D that cost to build the G6, I've already kind of paid for that once. So I think it's a little steep, to be honest with you. That's my feeling on it. And I'm not exactly sure. I mean, there's two things that are, I think, key in here. They've changed the optics a little bit, right? And then they moved the spectrum to the left a little bit, which that's the key part that I hated about the G5, right? Is it definitely was more Windexy than, for instance, the Sky, right? And certainly other fixtures that are out there. It certainly had more of a Windex approach. And so now they've kind of moved that spectrum to the left. What's your thoughts on it? Have you run one yet? Because I know you're probably an inside guy.
I have two of them. I can't comment on
until tomorrow
feedback yet.
Until tomorrow? Because officially
the
embargo is officially off tomorrow, right?
Yes.
But somebody must have leaked it, and therefore then Jake said, I guess, guys, I need to get the go-ahead because people are leaking this all over. I want to put the information out, and they put the info out. Or it was coordinated from the beginning. I don't know.
Or he did it anyway.
Ecotech and Jake, I mean, they're, pretty much like this. That ain't really going to happen. No.
But therefore, if he did it, would they really be mad, or to be like, hey, bro, that wasn't cool? Okay.
Yeah, that may be it too. Yeah, but I just think it's probably like, you know what? Everybody's getting information out there. I'm sitting on all this information. I want to be out there. It's not fair that I've got to go second. I've already prepared it. Let me get this info out. But I think it's kind of like the Apple like half launches, right? There's nothing really that big of a deal that's changed. They just made it to where it should have been probably in the first place. And as far as the optics change, I don't know that it really does that much because, my opinion is that it's the actual size of the fixture, right? Or if you're using bars or something like that, that really helps you with the shadowing because you still have the same light source, right? The lights still come out like rays, whether the rays come out like this or they come out like this, it's not that much different. And I don't know, especially depending on the mounting height. I mean, it says 126 degrees, right, on there. And, I mean, we have this angle of incidence where light bounces off of the surface of the water, right? So, are we losing more light? I don't know. I'm not an optics expert, but I do know that based around the Philips Coral Care and the Sky and whatnot and the approach that's taken with those and the patent that exists for that, the idea is that you want to get light down into the tank. You don't want light coming and skipping off the top of the surface. And so it's the same thing when people point their lights, right, at different angles, right? That's not necessarily a great idea. And if you have an open top tank and you look and see how much light is up in the ceiling, that's coming from the surface of the water, a good deal of it at least.
So I get that. And I think part of the interesting thing about this is now it's like we're trying to get rid of shadowing. We're messing with optics. Before it was like narrow optics because everyone was like par. LEDs don't have a lot of light output. I got to get all this light down in my sand bed because otherwise it's not going to work. And now it's like I'm okay maybe if there's less par, if it's spreading it out more. I mean, it was LEDs what, like 10 years ago plus in the saltwater aquarium world, like legitimate LEDs, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun to see how it changes, that it isn't all about super high par or getting down to the sand bed anymore.
Absolutely. One of the questions, or one of the answers was Keel Vision N2 says cheaper than buying a whole new unit. I wish, but really, back to the cost of the upgrade kit. If I was a person who said, I've got G5s, I like them, but I wish I had a little bit more of towards the violet spectrum. I would not buy the upgrade kit. I would just sell the ones you have. There's no way that you're going to get $400 less than retail for those G5s. And just sell the ones you have and buy the new G6s, because I can't believe anybody out there isn't going to pay, for instance, for a G5, $570 for a G5, right? I mean, I think people would eat those up at $570 a pop. So Why buy the upgrade kit and mess around with it and everything else? And then another question about the UV again from Burnt Squirrel, who
Bert, he's back.
Yeah, Burnt Squirrel, yes. Not a biggest fan of me. I've seen him on some of the other channels, but I do love his comments. It says, so the G6 doesn't actually do true UV or just close to it. What's your thoughts on this, Mark? And then I'll comment. Make sure I'm not dominating.
Does any LED fixture do true UV? I don't know. What does? Okay, so there is one that does.
Yes.
Which one?
So, well, first of all, true UV, right? Again, this is a big topic for people. An LED doesn't just emit at exactly the wavelength that it does. It emits at its peak at that particular point in which, the one that you purchase, if it's a 405 or a 395 or what have you. The cutoff, the official cutoff is 400, right? So technically, 395 LED on there is UV, okay? Technically, right? But a 400 or a 405 would, although it's semantics, will emit UV because there's a certain percentage of it that is, off of the peak to the left in the spectrum.
Right.
And some of it's to the right. So is it 395 UV because some of it to the right is outside of UV? I mean, quite frankly, who gives a shit? I mean,
I was going to say, like, are we splitting hairs over this kind of stuff? Like,
it's all really a lot of nonsense. I think getting a lot of the light down near 400 is a good idea because it does help with the with the way the corals look and the coloration and whatnot. Whether or not it's over that border or not over that border, or even if it's down to like 375 or something like that. Like there are some out there that are like, I think the GHL light actually has some LEDs in it that get down pretty low. I mean, as far as LEDs are concerned, but does it really matter?
Well, I mean, Port Wolf is making a point about metal halides. I was asking about LEDs producing UV. So therefore, it doesn't matter. I mean, we could go back and say, then, all right, so I don't want to get into the weeds about halides over LEDs, but it's like, everyone was like, LEDs won't grow corals. We've been able to grow corals just fine under LEDs.
Yeah.
So maybe it doesn't matter because if the LEDs for this long haven't had them.
Yeah, exactly. And Peter T is correct. He says the Mitris, which is the GHL light, and Kessel. But I mean, to be real, I mean, the amount, for instance, on the Kessel of the light, the power on the light that's actually down in that range is really fairly small because the output on the UV, first of all, the LEDs are super expensive, right? Whether or not you're integrating them into a multi-chip like the Kessel or you're doing it as the Mitris does. The LEDs are super expensive. They also are very, they take a lot of power and give off not much, energy in terms of par is concerned. And I don't really know that it makes a difference in the corals, because we see great corals in so many tanks that are all above 400 nanometers. So, hey, there you go.
I mean, I think I'm going to take an ultraviolet bulb out of my sump, put it over my tank, and then like once a day for like a minute, boop, hit the tank. Make sure I'm not looking at the bulb because I'd fry myself. And then I got all the UV we need.
Yeah.
Done.
But anyway, I mean, it is an upgrade from the EcoTag. You know, if I was giving advice to anybody, I would say if you've got G5s, right, your choices are stick with what you got. You probably liked them. If you had them and you're kind of like, I just wish they're just a little too Windex blue or whatever, then I would say sell them and buy the G6, right? Because it's going to be better if you like the whole ecosystem and everything. And it's going to be way better than the upgrade path. I mean, the upgrade path is just a pain in the ass to switch them out. And at $400, if you can't get better than a $400 discount off retail on your existing G5s, unless they're all beat up or something, there's a serious problem.
Yeah, we should let's take a note, Terrence, to check Reef to Reef in a week and see if we see any G5s for sale and do a little quick just see what, you know, what they're going for. See if some pop up and we'll just compare notes in a week. That'll be interesting to say.
What is interesting still is that there's still, I mean, overall, not a big push out there in the marketing and whatnot from Ecotech for the Wi-Fi on their lights, right? So they do have the capability to be able to connect over Wi-Fi into the ecosystem through your Radeon lights. And we discussed last week that this would also be the way, in my opinion, an Apex would connect in and be able to, you know, possibly control anybody who has G5s forward their Ecotech ecosystem, whether it's a Versa or a Vectra or a Vortec, right? That this would be the way to do it, but they're still not really touting that, and there's no new kind of features in the G6 in that regard, probably because they're not necessary. They're already there in the G5.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe we're like reaching that point similar with Apple products where it's like all this innovation, and it's kind of like, well, some innovation because they've pretty much got it all worked out, but nothing like major anymore.
Well, with Apple or with computers, obviously I'm an older guy. All right, I've been around computers since Apple II days, and certainly since the PC days. And really, what it takes every time, every one of these big advances, is there has to be a killer app, right? There has to be a reason to do it, right? That has to exist. And there isn't a real killer app, right? I mean, lighting has now reached more or less it's something anybody can get. You can get it for all different kinds of price points, and you can get decent stuff down in the lower price points. Now it's really about what's my overall ecosystem and the ease of use and the app and the way things go. Don't think there's anything new there yet, and most of it's all going to come, in my opinion, out of software, not out of hardware, at this point, if it's done the way I think it can be. Unless you're talking about legacy, like Generation 4 and before, or I don't have the Radeon lights, then it's going to require hardware, for instance, from the Neptune side.
Yeah, and Roger Reed is asking us, is the G6 going to be operable with the Apex? We speculated on that last week with just Apex and Ecotech gear overall. We think that's inevitable. We don't know when, because the companies are owned by the same parent company. So maybe it'll happen. We'll see.
Yeah, I'd bet my house on it. So it's absolutely. I mean, you're not going to put these companies together and not have. So it existed in the past. It then changed going forward. It's going to go back to that at some point. Whether or not you need to have a piece of additional hardware to do it or not, that's what remains to be seen. Whether or not there's going to be a new Apex at some point that has hardware in it that lets it more easily interact with the equipment. For instance, it has some native Bluetooth control in it, or they basically just go, okay, if you got the G5 or G6 in forward, you can control your Versa or what have you, or you can buy this module, the new WXM, I almost said it like Gray Carroll did, WXM2, right, that allows you with legacy, or if you don't have the Radeon products to do it. That would be my opinion of the way that, just in the general sense of as a consumer looking at it.
So speaking of control, and we're talking about light bouncing around your tank, switching gears, Pantaray has come out with a tank polisher. So you can see your corals better under those LEDs or halides, and it's controlled through a control box, through the Pantaray control box, which this is a novel idea. My thought was hand cramp central, maybe not as bad as the.
So first of all, is there acrylic, right? Only acrylic.
Yes, I got excited thinking it was for glass. Only acrylic, and something that then they show later down in the pictures is it with like a brush attachment. So you control it off the little Pantaray control box there, and it has a brush attachment for like scrubbing your aquascape. And I'm looking at this as like, okay, maybe if I have a small tank, but can you imagine, Terrence, in your size tank, like getting this thing, which is maybe this big, and being like,
yeah, if you've got to scrub your aquascape, you've got other issues you should be dealing with first. If you got to get in there and buff out your aquascape, that's my opinion.
I mean, who other than coral insert service guys?
Okay,
any of you on this stream? But let's throw them away for a minute. Is anyone on this stream? Because you're probably not running an insert if you're on this stream. How many of you consider scrubbing your aquascape? Like, let's throw away, like, you're trying to get rid of Aperture or something. Like, how many of you have ever or thought about, I need to scrub my aquascape? I'm going to bet this is none, unless people are going to say yes just to make a liar on them.
Well, I just think they need to watch more Mr. Saltwater Tank videos on how to grow coral, and then you wouldn't have bare aquascape in which to have to engage a brush on your aquascape. Right?
I mean, I'm just like, yeah, like maybe you want to scrub it to get the frag plug to stick, but still, I'm like, no, you're not.
I mean, look, I get it. It's basically it's a pump motor on a little handle that they've now put a little polishing wand on, and it's novel. I have to give it to them. It's novel, right? Because you basically took a power head pump and put it in a little handle, and now you have, because I mean, that's why it's got the same controller, let's be honest, right?
Right.
Sure. And said, yeah, go ahead. Now, all I can say is polishing acrylic, it's not hard, okay? It's not hard, but it does take a particular type of personality to want to do it, because it's not like you just put one pad on there and you're done. It's multiple levels of stuff, and the first one you do, right, it's going to look
scratches it all to hell.
Yeah, exactly.
Step one, you're like, oh,
exactly.
The first time you've done it, you're like, oh shit, what have I done?
After the first pad that you put on, you're just drinking one of these, going, I hope it's going to be okay.
And if you haven't set up your client for this and you're doing it in their house, like, you might get shot on the spot, because that's really step one, is like scratch the snot out of it and go from there.
I can see why somebody might have, like in a club or something, have one of these, because it's like $1,600. Okay, so just note to you, if you have an acrylic tank and it's a reasonably sized acrylic tank and you've got scratches in it, there are services that will do this. Okay, why am I not thinking of Sea Clear? Okay, Sea Clear out of Southern California. Okay, old friend of mine there, and they'll come out and do it if you got a reasonably sized aquarium, and it's going to cost you, but it'll be perfect when it's done. It's not going to be, you're not going to be hating life, okay? It's like, okay, here's the comparison I'll get, because I get Jim Graham hates it when I give automotive analogies, okay? But it's like dent pulling on your car. How many of those things you've seen, Mark, where they're like, okay,
oh my God,
use a glue gun and then hook this thing in, and then pop, it comes out, little heat, and look, it's like new. And no, that's not the way it works. So, yeah. Anyway.
I mean, I would say if I had an acrylic tank and I had a little scratch here or there, which usually hasn't happens, acrylic tanks scratch monsters.
Absolutely.
Like, I would probably consider that. I might even be excited about it, because you're like, I'm just going to get in there. So you got to go like you're this pad, then you're that pad. You got to go through like at least 10 pads, but then you're just like, meow.
Yeah.
Okay. Meow. It's better than like, oh, my shoulder. Now I have to have shoulder surgery.
But let's be honest, too. The guys who do this for real don't use a 2.5-inch pad, okay, when they're doing it either, okay?
They get the DeWalt, like,
yeah.
You're like, done.
Yeah. And actually, I think...
You're like...
I think it's Sean who runs that company. I think his name's Sean, right? Anyway, he uses air tools. They use air tools that they specifically set up just to work underwater with special lubricants on them, so they're reef safe and everything. And so, yeah, it's not it's not for the average person. But anyway, good for them for coming out for something and innovating, right? I want to stay positive. Mark, stay positive, please, man, because we've got people who in the comments that say we're nothing but negative, okay?
Oh, I mean, I was going to say, assuming this works, which I bet it does, like, look, Pantoray is a legit company. They make legit stuff. Or you have the service company do it for you, polish the acrylic. When it's done, you're like, wow, I can like reach through there and touch the fish. It's amazing.
There's nothing better than a non-scratched acrylic aquarium in terms of visibility. They are, again, under 1 inch too, by the way. I mean, when they're over 1 inch thick, it can start to get a little weird on, a lot of aquariums, but anything under 1 inch, yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, we'll give it that. All right.
First squirrely guys from the show tank. I need 20 of these. Oh my goodness.
Thank you. He said it, not us. All right, we'll leave that comment.
Yes. What's up next, man?
Oh, geez. Well, let's talk about the other big. The other big news of the week, since we're about halfway-ish through the stream, is that AquaForest, who used to be distributed by CoralView, is now distributed by Aperture, which, if you missed a previous stream, they're the company parent company who owns Bulk Reef, Ecotech, Neptune Systems. So that was an interesting move to me in a way, because like, why leave CoralView? At the same time, it's like now Aperture is distributing something.
So Mark, you've got your ear to the aquarium world rail, so to speak, right? The road. Mm-hmm. What are you hearing out there in terms of what is the business model for Aperture? What is going on in the local fish store scene? You've got guys they are good friends of yours that are manufacturers, et cetera. So, I mean, what in general are you hearing?
I've been hearing that Aperture, before they were called Aperture, it's just everyone called it the Bulk Reef parent company, back when they just had bought Bulk Reef, that was always their game. They wanted to be a distributor for everything aquatics, and any local fish store would come to them and buy. So this appears to be coming true at this point, because now they're picking up this brand. Who knows what brand will be next? So now the question
AquaForest is an interesting brand for those that don't know. I believe it's out of Poland, I believe. And they carry a whole line. It's basically Red Sea in a different color, right? They sell everything from salt to all the additives to all the different bacterias, you name it. It's all sold there. In terms of the Red Sea additives line and salts line and everything, it's basically kind of the equivalent of that in terms of all the products that they carry. Would you agree, Mark?
I was thinking more Nios, because like they have everything under the sun, like goji berries, and like Red Sea doesn't fiddle with that. But I mean, I think either comparison is fair.
Okay. All right. So anyway, they were distributed for quite a while by Richard out of Salty Supply. He used to run that company out of Florida, who is the Waterbox brand, right? I believe that's where it was before. And then CoralView picked it up, and they became the master distributor for AquaForest, and we're selling it. So obviously, I think it's, I think that, you now have to have, from CoralView selling to Bulk Reef Supply, selling to stores, it's clearly got a lot of hands on that, right? Carving that thing up. So it wasn't going to make a whole lot of sense for Aperture / Bulk Reef Supply, whatever, to be selling that into stores with another layer on there, right? And by the way, this is a rumor, right? This was given to us as a tip from one of our anonymous tipsters. And that's why the actual article on it was written by me, which basically says, this looks like it's another brand that they're taking over. We don't have any confirmation yet, but it does appear to be the case. What does this mean for local fish stores or consumers? Don't know, but it's, this whole ecosystem of brands, manufacturers, distributors, local fish stores, et cetera. Everybody has to have a cut, right, Mark?
Sure. Absolutely, unless you're buying direct from China.
Yeah, so everybody gets a cut, and that's where a lot of your money goes to, is the cuts before the manufacturer actually gets theirs. And depending on the products, it's going to be 50% to 35%, 40%, whatever it may be. And so when you have a distributor and then you have a store, and then if you also have Bulk Reef Supply in there, there's not enough meat on that bone, right, for everybody to eat. So it's a natural progression, if the business is big enough, that Bulk Reef Supply is going to take these on, I would imagine, right?
Sure.
And even then, is there enough meat on the bone?
I mean, I'm thinking about it from this parent company standpoint. Those guys got to have fingers in other industries. They probably are used to bigger margins. Maybe they just looked at the aquarium margins, are like, this is dismal. We got to find a way to carve out more. And this is their approach.
Right. And I mean, the fact is, like I said, is that manufacturers to distribution of products like this is going to be at most 50%, right? And then that's got to be split up between, the distributor, which in this case would be Aperture now, and the local fish store. And I would imagine the local fish store isn't going to touch this stuff for under 35% probably, right? And I don't know that bulk resupply is going to do it for what's remaining necessarily, or I should say Aperture is going to do it for what's remaining. So I don't know. Is there a price increase coming for this kind of thing?
I mean, you said 35% is a local fish store. Granted, I'm not a local fish store, but I get to buy stuff from distributors. I never see 35%, like 25 at best. Usually by the time it's delivered to me, it's like 15%. You're like, what are you doing?
Right. And Adam Moore makes a point. He says, aren't manufacturers big enough to sell to stores direct? I work for a USA brand-based manufacturer. We sell to distributors who sell to end users. The dilemma is that it's a lot of work to maintain direct relationships from a manufacturer. I mean, I know, obviously, for what happened, what I did at Neptune. So that's a lot of work. It's even a lot more work if you're an international company, right, or an outside the U.S. company trying to do that in the U.S. You have to have somebody, manage that brand for you in order to be successful. And there's not really a way around that. Now, Red Sea, interestingly enough, has opted out of the distribution model recently. I don't know if you know that or not, Mark, but they are now selling.
We talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about it, I think. They are now selling direct to stores. So they've figured out a way to do it. So it's interesting. I mean, the whole thing is really interesting to see how it morphs.
I think we saw this coming. Certainly you and I saw this coming. Is it going to be positive or negative for the industry? We have to wait and see. Then the question is, we'll both speculate this, and let's give it a minute, Terrence, because we got a lot to talk about. What brand do you think they would acquire next?
That's a good question. Whether it's acquire or just take the exclusive distributorship on that particular brand, it's definitely the case. People talked about what does this mean for customers. I think the one thing most people could probably assume out of this is it's not going to mean lower costs for customers. So I think I think that one's pretty much out the window because there's mouths to feed here, and we're talking about corporate mouths now and profit margins and all of these things that have to happen. And then you have the local fish store who has to make their money as well. It's definitely going to create a situation where a lot of money is still going to go into the channel.
So we have a good guess here from Unorthodox Reef thinking it's Carib Sea would be the next distribution or company that's acquired.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, it's rock and those things around some of the components that they sell and whatnot. I think it's definitely an interesting one. My personal opinion is the one thing that you don't necessarily see. I mean, you need controllers, you need pumps, you need filtration, skimmers. These kinds of things are all more or less wrapped up in the existing acquisitions. But what do you put the water in?
Yeah, I was going to say an aquarium company makes sense to me.
Yes,
you get that, then you got the rest.
Yeah, the glass seems to me as the biggest thing to wrap up into all of this, especially when it comes to distribution and probably bringing a better this is where they can provide value to the local fish store is because if they've got a lot of capital and a lot of warehousing and actually logistics, then local fish stores could take advantage of getting glass easier, more on time, maybe with credit terms, and also with all the other goods that they get, right, by being part of the Aperture, family, so to speak. So that will be interesting, Silent Todd says, I thought they did that with Innovative Marine. No, that was actually just a big rumor. That has not been the case. Doesn't mean it won't ever happen, but quite honestly, if they wanted to do that, Silent Todd, they probably could just go to the source where, Innovative Marine themselves gets the stuff out of China They wouldn't necessarily need them in California. Yeah.
But so a thought with all this, talking about what's in your tank, we've talked in the past about threats to even having anything in our tank. There's now a tropical truth organization that's popped up in Hawaii, which is kind of, let's call it our side of the story, the aquarium side of the story, going against all the negative press in the aquatics industry. So now we're starting to see some people fight back, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, by the way, I just want to let
info.
everybody know that you can go to reefingreport.com if you're watching this for the first time and you wonder kind of what we do. All of these articles are always posted out. We curate, Mark and I, like the best or hottest articles that might be interesting to you out on reefingreport.com. And as you see, you can see there's the link right there. It makes it really easy for you. So, so this is an interesting article describing a brand new kind of consortium of people who've put together something called Tropical Truth. These are scientists that have come together and said, we're sick and tired of you guys, talking lies about us in Hawaii. It's the most sustainable, fishery, blah, 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 blah. And so we're going to do something about it. And I'm just like, okay, first of all, a little late. Second of all, it's more science and not as much what I think, which is emotion. What do you think, Mark?
Having just been in Hawaii and had a conversation with someone about how the aquarium industry is, most fish don't make it out of the box type of thing. Most of them die in shipping, to which they are very amazed that I told them about my experience with that, which is not true at all. Is it late? Yes. Is it better than nothing? Yes. I definitely think you got to go more on the emotion side. Then the question is, I think ultimately this is going to come down to who's bigger online, who has more views, who can have the bigger reach. No offense to scientists. I'm not demeaning what they do, but in terms of getting social reach out there and fighting that kind of media, trend, it's not going to be in their wheelhouse. I'm not saying it's not good. I like it. It's good to see someone do something. We've talked about that in the past. I don't know if this is going to be it.
So my opinion on this one is that scientists that want to keep these fisheries open, right, for our hobby, they need to basically take note of what's happened on climate change scientists, okay, and how they push forward, their mission, right, to save the planet. Whether you're in favor of it, not in favor of it, whatever your opinion is on it, the fact is that it gets news and people think it's a major issue and it gets addressed and the science is there, but really it's about emotion. Let's be honest, right? Everything you see about it is emotion, from Al Gore's first video until today. It's really about watching oceans rise and swallowing up cities. And so when it comes to the aquarium stuff, I will give them credit. They have started to open the door to this from this marketing guy. And I know for some people that's a bad word, right? Because I'm a marketing guy. But from this marketing guy's perspective, this paragraph starts to open the door to it, right? Which says, aquarium fish are global ambassadors of Hawaii's majestic character. They open the window into Hawaii, a place most will never have the opportunity to visit. Whether they are in a major aquarium or a home tank, these tropical fish help grow an appreciation for marine life, their habitat, and for conservation efforts. Now, the true scientists out there, okay, and some of them I know who have talked about this stuff before, whether it's Richard Ross or others, are like, yeah, but we can't measure that. We can't give it whatever, right? And I mean, to his benefit as well, he also understands the emotion side. But it's like, we don't know how much that really affects Hawaiian tourism or issues that might pop up around Hawaii or whatever else. It doesn't really matter. It plays to the emotion that these are fish from Hawaii that they should be proud of, and seeing them in the homes, in the businesses, in places around the world means that Hawaii gets a place in people's minds. And that is for real, and that's emotion, and I'm glad they've taken it to that place.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard story once when I worked in the animal science department about how inner city kids didn't know that milk came from cows. So it's like you get so detached from.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, not from the standpoint of like, you get so detached from the source of where things are, then you don't even know anymore. So it's like if you never see a yellow tang except in a video, because maybe you happen across it on YouTube, it's like you don't know about. You may not even know Hawaii exists, or that that's where these things come from, and they come from other places in the world.
And we know that we, meaning you, myself, and the people who are watching this particular stream, we're all passionate reef keepers, right? And so when you bring somebody in your home and they see your reef tank, some of the first words you tell them is, "Oh, by the way, this is all alive. This is not something that is plastic like a diver in a shipwreck in my aquarium. This is all alive. It's grown from little tiny things. And by the way, it's important for us to pay attention to what's happening out in the world because some of this stuff that you see in here may not be available in the future." Now, that's not measurable by the scientists. I'm sorry. It's not. But it's important, and it does play a role that person's mind did get tweaked a little bit. And it does matter that little bit, right? And, oh, by the way, these are the fish you can see in Hawaii. Oh, I can go see those fish. Oh, yeah, if you go out swimming in Hawaii, you can just put on snorkel and stuff. You'll see that yellow tang, absolutely. All of that matters, and it's important, and winning is important, okay? What we have in the hobby, I think, for us who are responsible and whatnot in the hobby, it's an important thing to us. It's important, we think, obviously, for conservation, other things to enlighten people's minds. And winning is important in terms of not having these things closed down. So stick to the science. That's great. But find a way to affect people's emotions.
Look, people buy on emotion, whatever it is, buying a product, buying into your point of view. You and I both know that. It's like yes, we have data, but at the end, it's an emotional decision. I saw this a lot when I was in the financial world. You have these data guys, super analytical, and it's data. But what makes them cross the line, say yes to whatever it is emotion.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure, 100%. And it's good to see that this is happening. And we got another topic too this week, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's continuing this about getting data out there and telling stories about it and making people more aware. Coralfish 12G. It's funny. I go a long way back with George because I remember him wearing the clownfish pie t-shirt that I used to wear when I started Mr. Saltwater Tank, and he was like the nerdy middle schooler with the high voice. And now look at this guy and you're like, wow, what a great success story from a YouTuber.
So
but
milk's
also,
a tasty.
Absolutely. He's amazing, right?
Yeah. And then he goes down and makes this film, which is something I've thought about. And look, I didn't do anything about it. It's like, oh, I thought about it, but I didn't do anything. He goes out there and actually does it and makes a film about what's killing coral in Florida and what's being done about it. And it's, as you and I both noted, it's well shot, it's well produced, it's well edited. This took a lot of time and a lot of effort. So hats off to the guy.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, here's George. Okay.
There he is.
In some of the early days. Okay. I had to roll that up on George, right? And love him to death. I mean, the guy is OG YT, right? I mean, just out there doing it in his house, in his room, just showing all of these things that he's doing on his aquarium. And he has progressed over the years. I mean, just to so many different things.
Hi.
There he is there. He's, his teen years or what have you. We got to follow him through all of these years. And you know what? To be honest, some of the stuff he does, I'm not a huge fan of, right? He does some clickbait stuff with octopuses and other things and aquariums on the beach and, in kiddie pools and stuff. I'm not a big fan of that because I think it gives fuel for those people that are, that are out to fight us like those in Hawaii, right? But the latest video that he did, right, is so cool because he went to Florida and he went to these zoos and aquariums all around the country to talk about Florida corals that they're saving all around the country, and banking them more or less, right, and keeping them and growing them because of disease that's happening in the Florida coral reefs right now.
Right. Which, if we didn't have aquariums, and we'll talk about how successful this is in a minute, this wouldn't be possible. So if we shut it all down, some people would say, don't even keep any animal in an aquarium. This wouldn't be possible. Period. Done. Yeah.
So I think the side part of this that I thought was so interesting in this, it's a great video, by the way, and please go out to reefingreport.com and there's a link to it. One of the most interesting parts about it to me is how they kept talking about, this Justin Zimmerman here, They kept talking about how it's hobbyists and hobbyist equipment that made all this possible. And it's so interesting that what would these guys have done were it not for the hobby? Were it not for the hobby to drive the demand for a company with guys in it that, oh, by the way, want to be lambasted for driving supercars in Pennsylvania, that these guys created lights, okay, that can be put over aquariums and used by these guys and drive the hobby forward to help preserve our aquariums, right? And all of these products that exist because of the hobby. And these guys in the zoos and aquariums, et cetera, wouldn't know jack all of how to do this if it were not for the aquarium hobby. That's awesome.
And I agree. A lot of times, it's people have said, like hobbyists are better at growing coral than the scientists are. And maybe, now let's say maybe they're learning from us, but we're also helping them by provide gear like this. Look, a rising tide raises all ships. So if we can help them be successful, they're going to help us. Maybe they can learn something about coral through science that helps save maybe the Great Barrier Reef if it gets to that point. Just as an example, we're all learning stuff. We're all helping each other. It's cool to see this come together at that level.
And this is a great video that talks about all the aspects of it. Lots of great footage, lots of great visits that George did to all of these places, showing these corals coming together. I was just down in Florida, went to the Frost Museum down there and saw some of their tanks where they had pillar corals and other corals that they also have that they're banking there. And to be honest, a lot of these corals, as far as hobbyists are concerned, are not attractive at all.
Yeah.
Why would you want to keep that? But it's important because it is the coral reefs off of Florida, and they do have disease that they don't completely understand yet. And they're trying to make sure that while they're trying to understand what the problem is so that they can fix it or, mitigate it, that they don't lose the entirety of these corals. Like pillar corals, they were down to so few of these pillar corals. You can't even believe, I can't remember the number, but it's less than 100, right? Sites that had them.
Yeah, and I actually, you talk about pillar corals, I had a client who gave me like a coral ID card, a laminated thing you could take out if you're snorkeling. And it was like corals of the Caribbean. It was like pillar coral, elkhorn coral. And I'm like, yeah, if you go out now, like half of this card's going to be like, oh, I don't see any of those things. So, times change, and this is cool to see this kind of success that's out there. And as we started talking about it, the segment, George is out there doing this thing on his YouTube channel, doing a good job of it. I mean, hats off to him, not only on the story.
And hats off, by the way, to Fritz, who sponsored this trip. So Fritz, shout out to them, because George didn't do this for free, even though he gets the views and the revenue from the views. Fritz did pay to send him around to all of these places and to interview these people and to shoot the footage and all of that. So hats off to them, too, to look to how important it is to show people how important the hobby is outside of just looking at fish in glass boxes for our own entertainment in our homes, which is how many people see what we do.
Yeah. And, then the question is as hobbyists, at some level, are we creating coral banks for things in case it all did go wrong? I mean, if for some reason purple milka died in the wild, how much purple milka is sitting in your tank?
Or green slimer, right?
Or green slimer. Yeah. You'd be like ever been like Xenia is gone on the earth, everyone would be like, what the hell?
Yep.
Like, this is clearly the end of the world, but here's 5,000 frags I'll be happy to give you. In fact, you can just take the whole tank of pulsing Xenia and we can build back from there.
And the other thing too is this was kind of interesting. This was these are the frags before they're getting ready to go out onto the reef, and those little teepees, you know what they're for?
Keeps the urchins off of them, is my guess.
Not the urchins. It's to keep the parrotfish off of them.
Okay, that was my second guess, was the parrot guys munching on them.
Yeah, basically it said they just become little meals for the parrotfish if they didn't do that. But yeah, I mean, and I've dove and snorkeled and whatnot in the in the Caribbean, the southern, southeastern Caribbean and whatnot. And it's not the same as being in Fiji, but it is still beautiful in its own right. And all of these corals and everything are amazing. And I have seen elkhorn, full-size giant elkhorn in the wild down there. And, I want to know about a day that some of the stuff can come back. So, and if we can help keep it not go away in the first place, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's do it. I mean, maybe, and then the other question with this is, so we had these coral banks at public aquariums. Should we have coral banks in hobbyist hands as well? Which, I mean, then there's definitely some things you have to go through to become a AZA, American Zoo and Aquariums, like member, to get certified for that type of thing. And I heard at one point, part of it is you're never going to sell what you have. Like they will sell it in
Right.
other aquariums, but you can't sell it as a hobbyist. So, would it also be good to put some of these in the hands of hobbyists who not going to sell things, but as a backup to the aquariums, especially if the hobbyists maybe are better at what we do than the aquariums?
Yeah. So and without throwing people, specifically under the bus, you and I both know we've been to a lot of these public aquariums and we've seen how they operate things. They know how to do big pumps. Awesome. They know how to do big skimmers. Awesome. They know how to drop super sacks of salt into a big bin and make salt water in volumes that nobody can make. What they don't do well is coral reefs, okay, as a whole. Some of them do it better than others, but as a whole, in comparison to to doing giant rays and whale sharks, right, in comparison to that, they don't do coral reefs as well as the average hobbyists do. So, yeah, I think it would be an interesting thing to go to a number of experienced hobbyists like you or me or whatever and say, hey, yeah, guess what? With this grant, we're going to give you $10,000 and we want you to set up this very specific region tank and keep it alive for us, as part of what you do. And you can put it on your YouTube channel or whatever it is. I think that would be an interesting approach to widen out the security, right, for some of these things. Now, there was a topic here that came up. Let's answer this. If Aaron Circassian says, but if the ocean is hosed, how likely is it the frags from tanks survive if replanted? It's a very good question. Part of the issue with some of these corals in Florida it's not climate change related. There's something in the water that's happening. I should say it's not directly climate change. It may be indirectly climate change. They don't know. But the answer is that if you keep them and you try planting them out there in certain places, you can know whether or not they will survive. And you might just need to go up, a few degrees, latitude. And all of a sudden now you've got a coral reef that's thriving where it wouldn't have otherwise. But what's your thoughts, Mark?
I mean, it's an interesting question because I've experienced this at a different level in captivity. I have a client system here in Tennessee that's doing very, very well. I actually have to get in the tank to scrape off the acrylic this week. And I have taken frags from that system. These squirrels have been doing well in the system for 6 years. I've put them in another client's tank, and he's also gotten a lot of other corals that he's bought frags from captive bred stuff. That tank is doing well, but he has said the frags that he put in from my other client's tanks have done far better than anything else that he's ever put in his tank. And we're not talking about just green slimer. I mean, that's one of them because That's a great starter coral for your tank. So he's got a mix. So then there's interesting to take something from captivity, put it in the wild. We're not saying take something from your tank and put it in the wild. Please don't do that. We would want to do that very scientifically.
Yeah.
It may be more resilient because it has been in captivity. Because look, our tanks, we know, go from 80 degrees, sometimes down to 75 degrees. And some corals in your tank don't blink an eye. So how would they do in the ocean? That would be an interesting experiment to do.
Well, and that's some of the things that they're experimenting with different zooxanthellae that they can basically migrate corals over to that make them more heat resistant, let's say. But, over thousands and thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, coral reefs have gone up and down in latitude over and over. So the ecology will change. We should work our darndest not to have human impact on it, dumping sewage out of cruise ships, over important reefs and things like that. We should try to do everything we can.
Crashing the cruise ship into the reef.
Yeah, or crashing it in or whatever. But
let's drop an anchor.
But we also understand that things do change, and we need to be prepared for that as kind of mammals. So it's definitely an interesting topic. I love that this kind of conservation is happening, and I love that the reef hobby is integrated into what these guys are doing, and that they give credit to the reef hobby. And George was able to basically extract that out of them and make this video to do it.
Yeah, hats off on many levels. It's good to see the progress. It's good to see success stories and positive things coming about aquariums whether they be public aquariums or hobbyist aquariums in general. We've been so long for the subject of bad press. As we've said in the Reef Report, we need to wave our own flag. This is one of the ways that does it indirectly, but that's all part of the mix. It takes many approaches to get that done.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So, do we have anything else on the agenda today, or do we have questions, or how we're doing on subs? Because I'm going to keep you up all night, buddy, because we got to get to that number, man. Come on, people. If you guys haven't subbed to our channel yet, what is wrong with you? Okay, what is wrong with you if you've not subscribed? Do you not have a YouTube account? I mean, go make a YouTube account.
Well, then Google is watching you, Terrence.
Yeah, I know. If you think Google's watching you, if you're watching this on Facebook, I can assure you Facebook's watching you more. I mean, no joke. I was talking about need for a crown or something like that with my wife the other day. And not 10 minutes later, I'm scrolling through my Facebook, and I hadn't searched anything on anything, right? And it's like, oh, tooth repair. Look at that. An ad.
You know, it'd be good if like someone in the aquarium world was that sharp. You're like sitting there, you're like, man, I really need to frag my WWC whatever. And then it's like, boom, saltwateraquarium.com fragging tools is the next thing on your feed. And you're
like, exactly.
Wait a minute. Is Ken Brown watching?
It's like jacked into my mind here. I mean, did I really say that out loud? You know, oh, there's a sub. Look at that. I love the little fish tank I did there. You like that, huh?
I did. We're up to 978. And by the way,
978.
That's 4 more than when we started the stream. I have to go film a video, bro.
Come on, man.
I mean, look, it takes lots of, as you know, you got to talk a lot. You got to push a lot. So
we have 128 people on the stream right now. Now, do you think all 128 of those people have subscribed to the channel? I don't think so. I don't think so. So.
Well, oh, we're up to 178 now. Here we go. Oh, well, 980. Here we go. We're going in the right direction.
Now we're starting to get there, huh? Yeah, Mark's like, I got to go do other stuff.
I got to go film.
I gotta frag my tank soon, buddy. So I'm, maybe if you subscribe, you might get a chance at some of the frags out of my tank. How about that? Okay. How about that? Is that gonna?
What if I'm already subscribed and I want some frags on
Yeah. Have you ever had an acro that was, Mark, there's a question for you. Have you ever had an acro in your tank that just starts to take everything over? I mean,
yes,
like on the rock, everything. It just starts to eat but it's an acro. It's a branching acropora.
Sure. Yeah, then those are the ones you're like, you're not that pretty, but you're taking up all that real estate. Why did I ever put that in my tank?
It is exactly what's happening right here. It's I don't know, it was like a red robin or something. I don't know what the name was back in the day, but yeah, it is taking up about 19 inches by 20 inches of rock, and everything else is. I throw corals on top of it so that they'll start to grow and try to attack it and kill it off.
And it doesn't work.
And it doesn't seem to matter.
Well, I mean, while you were talking, Terrence, we lost 2 subscribers, but now we gained 1, so we're back up to 979. So, I mean, someone didn't like what you were saying. They didn't like being forced into having to subscribe. So they.
Are you serious?
I mean, I think you're going to be. You better start drinking some more, buddy, because you're going to have to fly solo on this one to get it done. If you want to stay up all night.
What video?
Because now there's going to be people.
What video are you doing?
I can't spill the beans, man. You know that.
Not at all, huh? Like Russell Adams said he subbed twice. He must have been the one that unsubscribed and then resubscribed to the channel. That's probably
vote once, vote often.
That's probably what it is. Russell Adams said he just made 2 fake accounts. Okay. Yes, I know I can buy subscribers. Okay, but I don't want to piss off Elon Musk. Oh wait, that's another social media. All right. Well, we got to wrap it up because poor Mark, he's got kids to take care of and everything else. I really appreciate everything you guys do, watching the show and increasing our numbers. It's been a great show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Go to thereefingreport.com. There's places also to leave us tips. Oh, there's another sub. Look at that. Love it. There are tips that you can go to. So if you want to give us a tip, you go right up there on the top and tip us off, and you can fill that in. So if you got some hot news or some things out there that nobody else knows about, you want to let us know about. Plus, you can go to other live streams that we've had. And you can donate through Patreon to us and get on the private Facebook channel. and ask Mark and I whatever you want. So all of those things are there. Until then, we will be back next week. 1 week from today, same bat time, same bat channel, right, Mark?
Absolutely. Same reef time, same reef channel. But your tank parameters may be different.
Oh, look at that. That's almost a sign off. We still don't have any. You guys haven't given us any suggestions for sign offs, for real sign offs.
Well, people used to ask for merch as well. So, I mean, when are we going to enter that game?
We got to enter that game. I'm waiting for the 1,000, right? Because then we can start getting, super chats and all of those things. So until we get to 1,000, what are we going to do? But yeah.
We're going to keep making great content through commentary on the Reefing Report. We'll be here next week talking to you all Sunday at 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. Terrence, I'll be at my house. I might be a little burned from being out on the water, but are you going to be back in front of your reef next week?
Yeah, I'll still be here the following week. Wait a sec. Let's see. Next Sunday I'll be remote. I'll actually be in Southern California figuring out how to do a live from down there. My nephew is graduating from college from my alma mater, which is Cal State Northridge. He's graduating down there with a business degree, so I'm super proud of him. His name's Michael, and so we're going down there for that. We'll celebrate, but they don't have enough room for us in the actual celebration. They're like, you can go watch a telecast. I'm like, no, I'll just stay home. And we'll celebrate. I'll tip one to you, but yeah, I'll be remote next week, and then the following week I'll be here. Yes.
All right, great. Well, then we'll be in front of our reefs for a while. I'm going to go get back to work. Thanks, everyone, for watching us. We'll catch you next week on the Reefing Report. Terrence, roll the outro.
Yeah, let's do that.